Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know about something that is so exciting that we have on the forefront. We will soon be releasing a course called Brand Belief, which is all about how to build a brand that you and your clients believe in. This goes far beyond just selecting a logo and a few colors to go with it. This is an intuitive journey about your customers' needs, their desires, their values, and how you can make their lives easier through the services that you provide. This is about how you can be of service in this world through a brand that has both longevity and legacy attached to it. We couldn't be more excited to bring this to the forefront so that people can take advantage and learn the skills, the knowledge, and everything that they need to do to tie together their business's message, their mission, and actually effectively communicate that to the world. So we couldn't be more excited. We will leave a link in the description to be able to enable people to sign up for the waitlist, and then we'll let you know as soon as the course launches. If you have questions, feel free to send those on as well. And this is for more than photographers. This is for creatives as a whole. This is for individuals who maybe even have a brand that's established, but they want to rebrand, or maybe a business that didn't establish themselves as a brand and now they would like to do that. This is equally for people who have a fantastic business idea, but they don't know how to communicate that through an effective brand. So click the link in the description. That will tell you a bit more information, and it will allow you to sign up so that you can be notified when this course is launching. Now we hope you enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, Ariana here from Well Fed Photography, and I'm joined by the lovely OMahony. And we are going to discuss a bit about her life story, how she came to live in Ireland, and about her business as well. She is a fellow photographer, and I'm so excited to share this episode with her and to hear more about the things that light her up, her own unique expression through photography. And Marie, I guess we'll just start with you telling us a bit about yourself and how you came to live in Ireland and start your business.
Yeah, thanks. I would love to. So I've been living in Ireland now. It'll be almost 10 years. And it's so funny because I almost feel like the person who grew up in America and lived in America is a completely different person. Like there's almost two complete parts of me. And I remember it, but even now, 10 years on, the city that I left, the friends that I left, the family that I left, everyone is so different. So Ireland is, I feel really home now, which is nice, but I didn't plan on it being home at all. In fact, there's a really funny story about my name that goes along with that and everything. So I came to Limerick in 2004 to do a one-year master's program at UL, at the University of Limerick, studying history. So my goal was to kind of go an academic route. And I also thought it'd be a lot of fun to work with the historical societies here, especially in terms of connecting them with families and kids and making history relatable to people. And the reason I say that is that many years later, I've discovered that there's some themes in my life that have simply found new expressions. So I did that and I put my head down, and I was here just to work hard. And yet, I'm away from everybody. Nobody knows me. I've never really liked my name very much. So I'm here about 1 or 2 days. I hadn't met any roommates yet. And I was talking on my phone to my best friend. And I said, so I was thinking maybe I should use my middle name instead of my first name, because I've never liked Christina, which is actually my first name. And she was like, oh, you have to do that. It's so fun. It's just a year, right? It'll just be a year. You'll come home. Nobody will ever know. It'll be so much fun. And so I kind of like, oh, I should do that. I should do that. So I wrote a little name plaque and I stuck it out on my dorm room door that said Marie on it. And I told everyone, I introduced myself as Marie. So in one day I went from Christina Booth to Marie. Well, I ended up meeting Dermot during this time. And we were just really good friends. He was easy to hang out with. He's 3 years younger than me, so wasn't, particularly on my radar. And we just hung out a lot. But when I went back to the States to become a teacher, because I had my teaching license as well, just couldn't stop thinking about each other. So I came back and he asked if we wanted to see if there's, go out or whatever a long distance international relationship with 8 hours between you means. But it worked out, and we ended up getting married and living in Arizona for a few years, which is really funny because anybody before I went to Ireland knew me as Christina Booth. So even in my wedding, the poor pastor had to explain that Dermot he was going to call me Marie because he was from Ireland, but don't worry, Dermot was marrying the right person. So in some ways, Christina Booth, growing up in Arizona, I loved horses. I was academic. I was part of the artistic community. I did theater, all that kind of stuff. Came to Ireland with one small baby. She was a year old, and Marie OMahony was born. So that was all I had. I have a before and an after life, which is really hilarious. So yeah, but that's what brought me to Ireland. And we always knew that we wanted to live in Ireland, always. But it just took us a while to get here. So we spent 5 years together in Arizona, and then we've been 10 years here in Ireland.
Wow. And so is it safe to assume that you're from Arizona as well? Yes. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we have such similar stories. So I'm going to share a bit about mine as well.
Yeah, I've been so curious.
I'm from Georgia originally in the States, and I came over to London to study at University College London. And I was just there for the summer, just to study for the summer. And I visited, where did I go? I was obviously in England. I went to Scotland, I went to France, and I went to Ireland. And when I came to Ireland, it was only for about 3 or 4 days, but I knew I was in Killarney, and I just knew that this was meant to be my home. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just knew. And later I'd moved back to the States. I was working in Atlanta, and I remember saying to one of my colleagues, marriage was not on the radar, having children was not on the radar. But I do remember actually saying that I'd love to have children with dual citizenship.
Yes.
Again, had no idea how it was going to happen, but I got really stressed out in the States. I was working with incarcerated individuals. I was working in prisons and jails all throughout the state, and I just needed a break. So I decided to get a working holiday authorization. I moved here for a year. So you can either pick a working holiday authorization that's 4 months or 12 months. I went 12 months, and I'm so glad that I did, because I actually met the person that's now my husband 4 months and 10 days.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I had even told people whenever I arrived, I was like, I don't plan to get in any relationships, because I'm only going to be here for a year. Why would I do that to myself?
That's the thing that just always makes me laugh is that that's a movie. That's a story. That doesn't actually happen to real people. You don't go to school for a year or on holiday for a year or working for a year and meet somebody. That doesn't really happen. That's not real life. That's just some movies. There's a lot of movies about it, actually. And so that's why I just still every once in a while I'll be driving down the road and I'll look around and be like, what in the world? I'm living in Ireland, and how did that happen? This just so different. And yet at the same time, like you said, I always had a connection with Ireland as well. And I've always loved it, but I actually did professional and competitive Irish dance for many years. So, which you can't do anymore, but I kind of had that little connection and very romanticized view of Ireland through that. And 90% of that is gone because it's real life and it's a real country. And I've definitely, when you're a mom, your life boils down to dishes and laundry and food. But there's just the little element that just looks around and says, I absolutely love this place.
Yes, I agree. I agree so much, because I grew up with listening to Clannad, and I would have seen movies and things that would have been, showing Irish countryside. And I always had that kind of affinity for it too. And so, yeah, there are times that I have those similar moments where I'm just I say it to my husband, and we've been married nearly 7 years now. And I'm I cannot believe that this is where I get to live. I cannot believe that this is where I get to live. And it's so exciting, and I love it. And I don't know how you feel. I know you said that you always had intended to live in Ireland, but this is home for me now. This is home.
Yeah, I can't imagine going back to Arizona. I love going back for a visit and I miss the shops and oh my word, I miss Mexican food. Like down to my very core. I miss real Mexican food. But yeah, I can't imagine living anywhere else. And we bought our first house last year and the place that I live at 6 Mile Bridge, which is just outside of Limerick. And it's just such a lovely community. People are really welcoming and warm, and I have some really good friends. And yeah, I definitely home. Never going anywhere else. If I have my choice.
I love that. Well, and let's speak about how you started your business. Like, how did you get started in photography itself, and how did that eventually become a business?
Yeah. Let's see, trying to go back. I always was interested in artistic expression. Like I said, I actually did costume design in college as part of my minor. I worked in professional theater. My mom always kind of filled our lives with art lessons, but the idea of actually sketching or drawing was just not my thing. But I'm old. And so photography used to be film, and you had to have money. You couldn't do that with very little money. You can't buy film, you can't have a dark room, you can't afford all the chemicals. So it's just never something that I ever thought was a reality. I didn't grow up with a photographer as a mom or a dad. However, my parents did have just regular point and shoots cameras, and we have boxes, like I would say at least 40 boxes of like the photo boxes, the long ones that are like, yeah, I mean, we have a lot. So it was always an element and the idea of just enjoying and capturing what life is right now, but there was nothing formal about it. And I remember the first time I held a digital camera. And I remember thinking, oh, this is so cool because it doesn't need all of the stuff that I couldn't afford. So fast forward, I actually came to Ireland after I graduated college in 2002 and took a lot of photographs. And that's when I first thought, well, maybe I'll come back here for further study. 2002, I took pictures constantly. But again, it was never something I thought I could ever do more than just take pictures like everybody does on their phones these days. And then my daughter was born and I got a better camera. I got my first DSLR. And that led me down the path of just wanting to get better pictures of her, which led me to absolutely falling in love with the art of photography and taking photos for friends and thinking, well, maybe this is something I could do to bring in some money for my family, because it was just my husband working and me at home with the two girls. So we finally kind of got to this, let's see, it would be about, I'm trying to think, 2014 is when I first started looking into opening a business properly. So I got a bunch of like things set up. I was ready to go. I look back at my work then, and I'm very glad for the people who were willing to let me practice on them because I needed a lot of practice. But I have some really special photos from then. And then I got pregnant with our surprise baby. And I am kind of an all or nothing kind of person. So I am just not somebody who can run a business and raise a baby. When I got pregnant with my first child, I actually went to a part-time job because that was just a desk job, because what I was doing before took all my heart and my passion. When I was a teacher, I just poured all of it into it, and I could not be the mom I wanted to be and run a business. That's not me. Unfortunately, I can't do that. So everything got put on hold for a while, and then he started play school, and I had 3 hours every day that I could actually like do stuff. So that's, I'd say, when it really got a little bit more serious as a business, and things were starting to take off. I have all of the things that I have to do. I have my business license and I have my business account and everything like that. And was really enjoying starting to connect with other families that were beyond my smaller circle of family and friends. And we went into a pandemic. And I realized that if my kids are going to come through this well. And if my family is going to come through this the best way possible, that I had to put everything else on hold for a little while. And so, yes, I technically have the business. Yes, it got a great start. I was really excited by the way where it was going, but it's just time to pause for a while and hopefully pick it up like, this later this month when all three of them are in school again. So we'll see. We'll see.
And what style of photography do you mostly focus on?
So like yourself, I am a documentary family photographer. And it was like a revelation when I discovered it, because I'm going to go back to what I was saying before about history. I've always been fascinated by the stories of people's lives. I loved the idea that you can dig in the dirt and find the bowls that somebody used to eat 3,000 years ago. I mean, it just blows my mind, and the ways that we're all the same and yet so uniquely different. It doesn't matter when or where a person is born. A mother has to deal with feeding a baby, changing a baby, keeping a baby warm. And that looks different wherever you are, but it's the same. And the idea of history as well. Just that idea of telling the stories. And when I discovered that family documentary photography isn't just, here's what we look like, or here's a little snapshot of our living room that has been cleaned and, the curtains have been drawn. It's just perfect little snapshot, but it goes a little bit further into making a record of your life and what it really looks like and who you really are, and how your experience of doing dishes, of feeding your children, of putting them to bed, of going on a walk is universal and unique at the same time. And I fell in love with it. I also have discovered over the past year that there's kind of a name for it. And I'm trying to remember exactly what that word is. I think it's aphantasia, but not everybody sees images in their mind. Some people do, and some people see them very clearly, and others don't. And so there's a spectrum of it. Some people will have nothing, and some people can see as if they're looking at the scene. And I am more toward the side that doesn't see images clearly. So I cannot set up a scene well because it's not in my head. I can't go, let's put these plants here and let's turn you toward the light and let's arrange you here, because that image that I'm working toward isn't there. So, however, what I do is I can see, oh my word, look at the way that light is hitting right there. And I can catch that. And so the connection between the approach of documentary photography, which is not to interfere, to direct, to prompt, or to pose, but to let life unfold in front of you, goes along perfectly with how I'm wired to tell stories and to capture and capitalize on what I'm seeing right in front of me. So I do. I just love it. I couldn't imagine. Now, that being said, I do have some standard poses. And during any session, I always have a period of time where I tell them to sit on the couch or stand under a tree so that we can get those photos, usually for grandma. That's what I had, like at least 5 families last year. They had like their photos and then like grandma's photo. So I have those and I can do them because it's a skill set, but it's not something that like lights me up.
Yes, I totally get that. And you've put documentary photography into such beautiful and clear words for people to understand, and not only for them to understand what it is, but to understand why there's such a draw, why there's such an attraction for you to do it. And I feel so similarly. So whenever you were saying that, I could just feel my heart opening up, because it's so much of what I feel as well, like being able to capture what people are going through, and they have shared stories, but also the uniqueness of it. I love that. And so I want to ask you, what do you feel like is your unique expression that you do bring to the table through documentary photography? Because obviously you and I shoot the same style, but we could go in and we could photograph the same family in the same home at the same time, and they could look completely different.
Yeah, so isn't that so cool?
So what do you feel is your unique expression or approach to what you do?
Oh, so I've actually, I did a lot of work on this during last year, during the whole pandemic. I had a lot of time for introspection, and I came to a certain point, and then I'm right back at it again. I'm really trying to delve into what it is that is making my vision mine, what I bring. At the core of how I shoot comes from, I mean, this sounds so silly, but it's absolutely 100% true. When I look at someone through a camera lens, I fall head over heels, Twitter-pated in love with that person. It doesn't matter what they look like or sound like. It doesn't matter if the kid is screaming bloody murder or somebody stomping upstairs, but there's something about looking at it through the camera. And I just absolutely fall in love with the people that I'm photographing. So I think that's at the heart of heart of what makes me unique. That I'm not just trying to create a vision that I have in my head or trying to make people look the best way possible. They look the way they do, but through this lens of love. And I see the things that they do that maybe nobody else would notice. I have a photo, it's on my front page of my website, and it's mother's hair and her hands in her daughter's hair, just kind of doing this. And she said that she didn't even know she did that. But to me, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So I think that's a big part of it. Another part of it is a concept of solidarity and empathy. There's almost nothing I haven't seen at this point. I have worked with children in one way or another, between being a gymnastics coach, a swimming coach, a high school teacher, a middle school teacher. I've run camps. I mean, I've worked with kids in so many ways. There's almost nothing I haven't seen. And there's very few situations I haven't been in. So you're not going to get judgment, and you're not going to be in any way judged, because I've been there. It's like solidarity. We are doing this together. We are all here. We all have to work through it. And when I take photos, I'm trying to show an honest portrayal of what life really looks like through an empathetic viewpoint or lens or approach. Like, yep, it's hard. You're right. It is hard to deal with that tantrum, or, oh my goodness, another glass broke. But through that, there's a beauty that comes from resilience. And there's a beauty that comes from choosing to sacrifice for your children. And that beauty goes far beyond putting on some makeup and standing in a field, because it shows that deep love that they have for each other. So like I said, it's not a very concise answer, because I'm still working on it. I will eventually get it down to a more concise statement.
I love that. And I think that the common thread between documentary photographers is that loving acceptance. Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, we're not trying to change people, or we're not trying to have them have this false representation of who they are, or who we think that they're supposed to be or look like. So I love that you've mentioned that, because there's a certain amount of empathy that comes along with connecting to other humans through that really honest viewpoint. So I love that so much. And you've recently started a group for female photographers in Ireland. So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. So about the time when I realized, and this was really, I'd say only maybe 2 months ago at this point, but about the time I realized that I needed to stop all my business stuff, because it was taking away from my family, especially when they needed 3 kids, needed homeschooling. And my husband's going through a tough time with the health of his mom. And my parents are here. And there was just a lot to juggle. I said, you know what, this is one of those times that I need to not be pouring into something other than the people I love the most. They deserve the best out of me. And about a week into that, I realized that I was like, my creative heart was struggling a little bit. I was still taking photos, but I found a lot of community and connection in the photographic community. And I was missing that because I wasn't engaging with it anymore. And that came about the time when, on a different Facebook page, Michelle McKay's We Are Memory Catchers page, very talented, she calls, amateur, according to her, photography, named Una Casey, wrote something and said something about living in Ireland. And I thought, I wish I could be something, I could reach out to her, because we're in the same place and we have some of the same challenges with light and with the lockdown. And yet I feel a little weird, like, hey, can I follow you and be your friend? Like, I I didn't know how to do that, but I wanted to. And it reminded me of similar thoughts. I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could just do a little comment and say, hey, so exciting to see another Irish photographer. We'd love to get to know you more. Come join us here. And where we support each other and we encourage each other. And so that night I did. I just created the page and I called on Deirdre Rusk, who is one of the most amazing women I have ever met in my entire life. I've never met anyone as encouraging and supportive and in love with photography as Deirdre. Like, she just amazes me. So I said, any chance you want to help me with this? Because you're not busy with 3 kids or anything in a business either. And she said she would. She does even better than I do. And we did. We set it up and we invited everyone we knew to just come and join, where you can just love photography. You don't have to be good. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to have a camera. Some phenomenal things happen with cell phones these days. I don't have one of those cell phones, but other people have fancy ones. But I just want somewhere where you can say, I took these pictures and I want to share them. And other people say, thank you for sharing them. Loved seeing them. And so to facilitate that, we have the weekly themes. We've done reflections. We've done looking up. We've done following leading lines. And this week we're looking at light, and just a way of creating that community with people who are going through a similar situation, that in that we don't always have those gorgeous sunny evenings. Sometimes we do, or we are all in actual lockdown, unlike a lot of the world. So that's what we have.
I love that. And I agree about Deirdre. She is incredible. She is so supportive. She is amazing. She is the epitome of community over competition.
Absolutely.
And I love her. So hopefully we'll get to have her on the show as well. And I was going to ask if there was another photographer that you really admire and why you admire that photographer. So would you answer that for us too?
Yeah, well, I've actually talked a lot about Deirdre. And unfortunately, there's just so many photographers that I admire that we could go on for a long time. But within Ireland, Joanna Schofert of Joanna King Photography is just, I had the privilege of meeting her last year before last. Where did last year go? 2019 at a retreat. And I just admire her not only as a photographer and as a businesswoman, but just her soul is so kind, and she's generous, and she gives whatever she can, whether it's advice or encouragement. And yeah, she's definitely somebody that I look up to. I also, outside of Ireland, I look up to Laura Elizabeth Wood, Laura Wood Photography, because what she has done with her flock community is very similar to what I want to do on a very much smaller level with the Moontrass Facebook group. And again, this idea that wherever you're at, if you love photography and you love creating, then you're welcome. And that means a lot to me in terms of community over competition, and just how much we can do when women stand together.
Yes, which is very fitting, because although this episode will air after International Women's Day, we're actually recording it on International Women's Day. So I feel like we have this extra incredible feminine energy flowing through the conversation.
I mentioned her once, but I cannot not say Michelle McKay in Australia is hands down one of the most amazing women that there is. Photographer, businesswoman, mother, friend. Yes. So before I move on, I had to give a shout out to her, because she's just been one of the greatest inspirations of the last 4 years. So there we are. You're allowed to, you can keep talking now.
And I have to add about my agreement with Joanna too, because Joanna really helped me whenever I was starting my photography business and I was trying to decide what direction to go. And she just offered like a few words, like literally it was a comment in a Facebook group that we were both a part of. And that really was pivotal in me choosing the direction that I went in. And she has been our family photographer. She came and spent 12 hours with us one day, just documenting our family and what our day looked like. She also came along with me last year as I was putting together the book of breastfeeding stories and photographing families for that. She came with us to Connemara, and she photographed some behind the scenes of me photographing families for the book. So she's incredible, and I highly recommend her as well for many reasons.
It's one of my dreams to have her come visit and take our photos for our family as well.
Do it.
My dreams, plans.
It's a worthy investment. And that's the thing too, is what I love doing is being a photographer who invests in other people's artistry, because I believe in it, and there's no greater way to show that you believe in it than investing in it yourself and appreciating it and enjoying it and going through those experiences. And like, as a business owner, you learn so much too, because you learn what it's like to be a client, and you learn what it's like to be on the other side, which sometimes you can forget about when you're so used to just being behind the camera.
Yes. And it is so important to have that feeling, because you remember how it can be a little awkward and you're not exactly sure what to do with your hands or where to look. And yeah, it just reminds you how to connect with other people, because you've been there.
Yes, absolutely. So we are gonna, wrap this up a little bit, but I've got a few questions left. So one is, I know you mentioned you've kind of put the business on hold slightly just while we're going through the last of the lockdown and pouring into your family and pouring into this group of fantastic other fellow Irish women photographers. But like, what is the next highest version of Marie or Marie OMahony photography? Like, what is that next level for you? What does that look like? What do you, if you had to put a vision together, what would that be?
Thanks. Yeah, I have two kind of main goals that I'm working on. The first one is that I really am planning on within this year, I don't even know what to say at the moment, but it's a very unique and a different offering for families that I've ever seen before or done before. So it's a unique way, and I'm still working out the details, but it's a way to introduce people to the concept of family documentary photography in a way that's very accessible. And I just can't wait to do it. So there's going to be a big kind of launch of my business as a full-time photography business. And I'd like to, by the end of the year, it really does depend on when all this lockdown stuff happens, but by the end of the year, if not be a full-time business, then be ready to be as soon as lockdown ends. And like I said, we were just really gaining momentum before everything paused. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Whatever they were planning on doing, that next step that they were hoping for, it was ramping up, it was getting there, and then everything's been put on pause with this indefinite end, which is hard to even begin to figure out a timeline for your plans. But I will be offering on location and in-home photography sessions of anywhere from 2 hours to full day in the life, like you were mentioning Joanna did with you. And that's what I'm going to focus on, as well as this little extra thing I'm working on in the background that I can't wait to share and launch. It's something I'm so excited about. Anyway, the other thing that I'm hoping for is being an American, living in Ireland, being kind of 90% aware of the reality and 10% still in love with the mysticism of it all and the fairy tale, is that I am going to be focusing on American tourists coming to Ireland and offering vacation photography in a completely documentary manner, where I will accompany them for a particular event, as if they want to go to the Cliffs of Moher or Blarney Castle, or a full day of their experience and creating some lifelong heirlooms, because a lot of Americans come to Ireland once in a lifetime. And I want to create that unique experience and have products that they're able to take home and put as part of their life to treasure this time that they came to Ireland. And then there are other families who have connections here and have maybe cousins or have been coming every year for the last 20 years, and to be able to also have a beautiful photographic record of these memories. And so that's where, after I get the focus on families really solid and strong and where I want it, I will be pouring a lot of my attention into, I guess, sharing the experience that I've had as an American living in Ireland and just loving this place.
I love that so much. And it's so important, because the documentary aspect needs to be there because, for example, I had some people reach out to me. The father of the family had received a terminal diagnosis, but one of his last dreams was to come to Ireland and to spend that time with family here. And so those are precious memories. You know, a lot of people think of a holiday as just going off to have a bit of fun, but sometimes there is deeper meaning behind it. And so to be able to have documentary photography that can speak to that and capture that is going to be so powerful. So that's incredible. I love it. I wish you the absolute best with getting all of that off the ground. And you know, if you need any help, reach out. I'm here.
Oh yeah, I love it.
What is the legacy that you hope to leave behind with the work that you do?
I think my first and foremost hope and goal and dream and what keeps me going is to be able to create a record of my children's lives that show them that not only that they were loved, which most people know, but that they were seen for who they are, cherished and celebrated for who they are, whether it was in the bad times, the good times, whatever their awkward phases were. All of that is this record of their lives that shows that they were valued as individuals, as themselves, and be able to pass that on to their own kids and be able to tell the stories from their life in a way that is, I don't think a lot of people get to. We tell the stories, but we don't always get the illustrations that bring the stories to life. And I'm hoping that my children will be able to do that. And then by extension, when I go into other families' homes, that I can create this legacy is the right word, but an actual tangible evidence that they are loved, that they can tell the story of when the cup broke and it scattered over the entire kitchen floor, but they have the picture to bring that story to life and be able to share that throughout generations. I mean, can you imagine with the work that we're doing now, being able to talk to your great granddaughter and show them a picture of yourself at 8, coloring the same kind of photo to create that tie across generations. It's just very exciting to me.
I love that so much. Is there anything else we haven't spoken about that you would like to share?
I think we hit most of everything. I have to laugh because on my website, the part about me part, it says the first thing you need to know is I like to talk. I mean, I talk a lot. So I think this is a perfect introduction to who I am. I talk a lot. I talk very fast and I smile a lot. So it's just been nice to have a chance to see you and hear a little bit of your story and have that connection and know again that we're not alone, you know, as mothers, as photographers, as Americans, as women living in Ireland. It's nice to know you're not alone in all of this.
I love that so much, and it has been such a joy to sit and chat with you. And actually, where can people get in touch with you if they want to follow along, if they want to reach out for a photo session? Where can they find you?
The best place is probably my website, which is pretty straightforward. It's www.marieomahony.com. There's no E in O'Mahony, so just Marie, OMahony.com. And from there, you can connect with Instagram, which I am not as active on as I would want to be because I'm old. I'm 40 this year. I was laughing at all of your wonderful breastfeeding stories. And I'm like, mine were 5 and 10 years ago. We're past that phase. It's such a strange thing to be past that phase. But yeah, so Instagram I'm working on, but most of my stuff would be through my website.
I love that. And for anyone who does reach out to Marie, do let them know that you found her through this episode, because we'd love to know that we're helping to connect people with their perfect photographer and with just other resources that will enrich their lives. So thank you, Marie, for being here. It's been such a pleasure and a joy to have you on. And I look forward to seeing all that is to come as we come out of lockdown and as your business really gets off the ground and just flourishes, because I know that it will.
Thank you. And you too. I can't wait to see all the rest of these interviews. Have a really good day.
Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Please feel free to leave a comment or a review to let us know what you loved about this episode and others like it. And if you'd like to be featured on our show, or if you know of someone who would be an amazing guest, get in touch with us at info@wellfedphotography.com and mention Living a Life Well Fed in the subject line.